of joining the board, we'd love for you to help us. And it almost like gave me like a sense of purpose. I'm like, oh, they I want my opinion? What? Like, so it's a cool feeling to kind of feel like you can contribute to something bigger than you are.
Yeah, right. So, sense of purpose, contributing. How about new in town? Anybody come new to an organization and maybe you moved town and you were at IBC before and you look around, or you switched to IBC from USA, so new in an area maybe? Any of that?
That was my case,
Okay.
being just involved as a member in New Jersey and then moving back to Dallas.
Yeah. Great way to get to know.
Yeah, some good networking.
Yeah.
Jumping into the communications world in Dallas and expressing an interest in getting involved, and next thing I know, you want to be on the board?
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
I think some people join boards simply because, I've worked with, they've been some of the best board members, but I mean, the reality is they wanted to build their own resume.
Yeah, right.
They wanted to.
In transition.
And we act like that's a dirty word, but
It's okay, it's okay. It's like money, it's okay, jobs are okay.
Terrific board members that I can tell they were on the boards I was on because they wanted to build their resume, did a great job.
So if I can add, just kind of speak to that and sort of play devil's advocate. So we've had a member on our board who, I think he did that to try to grow his own business, but as a result, IABC Houston suffered because of his leadership. Because he would only do that, he would put that on his LinkedIn like president of IABC Houston, and then would fail to actually deliver on things that he said he was going to do, and then the chapter suffered as a result. So I think I totally see the value and merit of putting that on the resume. I mean, I put it on mine, but I think when you have those people on the board, it's very important to show that they are committed to the chapter and not just their self-interest.
Sure, and of course we want servant leaders leading from behind and people who don't want to be here and the time, right? So if these are all the reasons, I think these are great. I think we covered a lot of them. So then who's a good leader? How to find good leaders? Who's a good leader then? Who's a good candidate to be a board leader?
Someone who's committed
To, can I push a little?
No,
Committed to
the organization and the values of it.
Okay. Not be sure yet, but I want to say, oh, this is no negatives room, so, that's true. Someone who's committed. Someone. What else? If these are the move up, creative, more network, self-confidence, be brave, be with my people, who's a good prospect then? Anyway, do a handout on
Someone of the servant heart who's willing.
Somebody's working hard, who's willing. Okay.
I think you have to be a good listener.
Okay, good listener.
That's it.
You have to show up.
Want to show up? Okay. What if you're not doing that yet? How else are you going to find out who's a good prospect? Who's a good... Okay. So what if we flipped it, and instead of saying who's already doing all these things, they're not showing up yet necessarily, they're not quite committed yet. We don't know if they're willing, but we don't want to do the arm twisting. So I'm going to say somebody who's got these needs. So who are you having a conversation with, over a lunch or in your company or with somebody else, and says, I just can't get anywhere in this job. I mean, they got a lateral, but it's, I just can't move up. Nobody's quitting. Nobody's dying. And, I just can't do it. I've had someone say that to me, about a large organization in my town. I will not mention it. She goes, God, they have to die. They all stay here. I'll be older someday, dear. But I said, yeah, I get it. You should join IBC. And guess what? She did. So somebody who needs it, right? So instead of somebody who's got all these things because I want to do less work, somebody who needs it, somebody who thinks you're, oh my God, finance. How about somebody who says, I'm not getting listened to at work. They say I don't know anything about business. I keep getting, sent on these dumb roles, and I keep getting this, and that. And they don't think I know anything about business, right? Do you hear that? It's the gripers. It's somebody who's got something wrong going on in the job, or something that's not enough, or somebody who wants something more out of life, or more out of their job, or the next job, or a career change, or they, left that company, somebody who's thinking about things. So instead of thinking about what you want from them, think about, in customer relations, it's really what it's about. Think about what somebody's needs are out there and say, I think this would be good for you. I think you might want to get involved, and to go right to, so join our board, right? Say, why don't you try this?
I think a lot of times it's so important just to have a conversation with someone and encourage them and let them know that they can do this. There's someone that's coming today from our chapter, and she was our secretary last year. And she really wanted to kind of have an extended role, but she wasn't sure if, she would be the right person for it. And I remember we went to lunch like back in January, and I was like, how can I bribe you to be a part of this? And then, I told her, it's, you're gonna have support, we're gonna be able to collaborate. And I think just showing confidence in people is a really, really good way to empower them and want to be involved and continue to be involved.
Yeah, for sure. I do.
I was going to ask you that, and like what you said, I don't have a lot of experience with IBC, but I've been in lots of other volunteer organizations, and I think a huge thing we often overlook is actually asking people to do things for us. Like you said, you got asked and you were in. There's a value a lot to it. I know that means a lot to me. If someone thinks enough of me to come say, hey, will you do this, share that, whatever. But then also follow through, because I've been in those situations where I was asked and I took a leap of faith and then found out like, oh no, we decided on someone else, and you're like, well then why did you ask me? Yeah. But I think sometimes we look so into that, like everyone's just gonna step up and do, and we often miss out on really great people because no one's bothered to ask them to help or ask them to.
So I heard somebody say, and I think it was you, Mike, who's a good listener, right?
Yeah.
So if you got some people who are introverts out there, and they're not the people who are, oh yeah, I'm there, I'm with you, and I'm, more one of those extroverts, I'm with you, but the quieter people who are listening in a room and who are saying, who brought somebody with from their organization to a small meeting or something that they thought would get something out of it. Some of those people can be invited to an early job first instead of going right to the board, because that is what you want on your board. You don't want somebody to do less. You don't want somebody to come in and say, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that better. I'm going to take this too. Actually, when you see somebody who says, I think we just need a board of 3 because, I'll take on those 3 roles. That's not good. That's not an empowering leader. You're doing more and not less, and then you'll end up with a martyr syndrome. You also, you're not a listener and you're not empowering. If one of the best definitions of a leader is that it's someone who empowers others, and you are doing less because you're helping others find their leadership potential. And it's harder to find those people, but they're all out there.
Along those same lines, I was going to say diversity is so important. So I really wanted John to be my president-elect the year that I was president, because I tend to be sort of aggressive and hasty about things, and I knew that John could reel me in because he has sort of a different way about him. He's very patient and level-headed, where I'm not. So I think diversity is kind of a good...
It's a new one, George, but thank you.
Diversity in perspectives as well as background. How about age? I've been on other boards, and we've identified we're missing this. Let's say it's an age thing, or we're missing some young ideas about this audience for an arts organization. So we go to that person and say, would you come and spend some time with us? We really think we're missing your perspective, and your perspective is important. Who doesn't want to be asked for ideas? Maybe you don't want to sign up right away for a 2-year board commitment, but who doesn't want to be asked for ideas and advice about how we can make this better for you or your group or the students or past presidents or something, right? Asking those questions. So people who represent something that you don't see on your board right now that you want there. Anybody else find good ways to do who? And then I'm just going to whip through some tips for recruiting that some others have shared with me. And again, this will be in a handout if you want me to electronically send it to you. Just shoot me a card. Tips for recruiting, and I'll get into when and the recruiting all year long and not in an emergency situation. But somebody may agree to co-lead. Some of you, there's mixed feelings on this. It's terrible or it's awesome. But be sure the responsibilities are split up well. Be sure that you define these things well. So when you're asking somebody to do something, It's not a, hey, it's finance, how hard could it be? Don't do that, right? I mean, just really have a specific position, and if you think it's too big, maybe it's too big. Maybe you need to split that up. Chicago is one chapter that I think does a really good job on their website and recently, and they really focused on their better handoffs this year. That has their job descriptions for 12 different board positions on their website. It's going to do it as a handout, and instead I'm going to say IBC Chicago. Go there, and also in the Leader Center, there's good job description responsibilities. So being able to talk one-on-one with somebody, have a coffee or a drink and say, let me show you exactly what this is. And by the way, it should be somebody who's been involved and know you all along instead of, they start really, if you could decide by Friday, that'd be great because we gotta send out the mailer. No, that's not the way. Early on, right, develop all the way, but be sure they know what they're signing up for. Be transparent. What's one of the best ways to recruit is they could talk to a board member who already has it. How many have all your board member for your current chapters listed on your website with your emails and your, all your details? How many? Okay, great. I see a lot of you, some of you who aren't here in the room today that don't hear me. I did not see all of your names. I couldn't even find your name. So if I'm thinking about board leadership and I can't find who my programming director is for my chapter, and it's a big one or it's a little one, how can I reach out and ask them what that job is, right? So let's do some of the passive, easier things like just telling people who we are. So chairing committees first. So look at anybody who's gone to your events or had a role or been a greeter. So these people who have already shown some level of engagement. It's just like, going to your original customers for, something better is anybody who's had any engagement, ask them if they want more. Ask them to step it up in terms of, we'd like you to step up. We've seen you've done a great job. Seek out career switchers. You'll know who they are because they come to events or they're calling you for informational interviews. I get asked for a lot of informational interviews. I get a lot of student interviews. And I say, have you thought about? And when you're still a student, I think when you're career switching, a great organization would be. So when you hear and see people coming to you and saying, I'm thinking about switching a career, maybe show up at a couple of events. Again, they're not your first board members, but these are the who's. Again, somebody who needs it, not what do you need from them, what do they need from you? I love our chapter awards. I know Casey has got it a lot. If anybody hasn't applied or submitted an application to win an award, you won't win if you don't submit it. So seeking out opportunities in your own chapters to reward the activities, a great committee, an event afterwards, or kudos in public, sending a letter to their boss, etc. Be sure you reward for those little things all along that your volunteers are doing, even if it's a small thing, right? So people get the, oh, this feels good. I am boosting my confidence. Felt like a little deal to me, or just it was kind of a pain in the end. It was a snowing event, but feel good about it, right? So what if somebody says, I just don't know if I can do it? What might you do? Consider an overlap period. Consider a mentor for them. I think Minnesota said that they had a bench and somebody who was, right behind you, and I can't remember if Paul Colley's in here right now, but not a mentor leader, but somebody who's right there with them. So consider having, I know some of you say, we don't even have enough time for the main positions. Take a past president, take a past leader and say, would you be a mentor for you've had this position, you did a great job 3 years ago when you had this. Would you, she just, was a little uncertain of, can she really run the whole thing on her own? Have a 3-month period. So consider an overlap. In other words, make it easier for them. And look at the student members who are recently graduated. Again, you know them, you should know them, you hear about them, they're looking for jobs, right? Anybody else here from new students or people who are in their first job and say, oh, I just have to get some experience, and they can't, they've had an internship. Get some experience. Again, maybe not a board position, but maybe you've got a student member. I mean, all kinds of boards have, somebody from their constituents representing. Maybe they have a special non-voting position. So find some needs out there. That's what I'm really saying. Find some needs. So what are the roles of the IBC leaders? Again, we talked about looking at those roles, making them well-defined. What's the right number for a board? Anybody have a guess? Anybody have a thought on that? What's the right number of board members you should have? What's the ideal? I have no idea. Because great boards, I've seen great boards go from like 5 people, but nobody else was involved, and those 5 people did everything and they burned out. And then the next year, darn if they didn't have 10, 11, or 12 people, because they kept recruiting, they had 10, but then they got more. Minnesota said they had a waiting list. I know that that is true. When that person's done, so what's the right number? Maybe you're starting small, maybe you're Seattle, maybe you're not gonna start with 10. I'm just saying, maybe not start with 10. So your chapter's in a different place at different times, but what you want is great leaders who do less to lead. And so for you, it might mean, oh, it's really easier for me to lead if I've just gotta coordinate with 3 people, right? But am I giving value? If I'm doing things that this is what people need and I'm thinking about their needs, I can't just, hog all those opportunities, while I go, somebody had to do it. Nobody could do it as good as me, is what, is underneath that. Give it up, let go, and let some other people do a job. And if that means expanding your board by 2 people, do that. I would look at your bylaws, as we have with regional recently, and look at your bylaws and see what that minimum is. Probably don't put that your minimum is 10 people if you think there's going to be some years you don't have 10 people, but look at your minimums for that. So there's no exact answer. But what do members want? The IBC International surveys say professional development and networking go hand in hand, and that those are the 2 main things. So so this has been all happy talk, right? What are hard truths in here? You will never develop the next leaders and expand your base of leaders, and you will be burned out if you do not believe that anyone wants to help you or will step up or will do a good enough job. You have to be willing to make some investment in that person to shore them up with somebody else if you think, they're failing, or you don't have the patience, or you're ready to, so then you get somebody who, can mirror, for you and do the other side of that and help that volunteer, because you'll never have that bench if you'll never be able to leave your job if you don't build your successors all along. So another hard truth is that if you don't support your board leaders, and you can tell I'm all in favor for what? L-I and this. I think you're doing it, making an investment in your chapters and your growth by being here today. So good for you, all of you who chose to be here and want to give it back to your chapters. So take what you're learning and then pass it on, right? We all want to pay it forward, and we don't want to do these jobs forever because there's something new and exciting that we want to do next. So the silver lining is, if you have recruitment be everybody's job and not just the job, sometimes people have board development. I've been on that on a couple boards, but it's everybody's jobs to be out there looking for people who need us, people who need to be in IBC, people who are going to get a lot out of IBC because of all those values, people who you can answer, what's in it for you? Well, you're going to be able to talk turkey and finance if you take this role to your boss, who you say just doesn't see you as anymore but a tactical mouthpiece. You're going to be able to get that. So find people who really need you, and you will also then build a bench, give your chapter more stability, and be sustainable. And you won't be constantly in a crisis mode, which is no fun, or saying I just can't find anybody to step up. So I think that, I know it often happens, there's a lot of troubleshooting around that, but these are just some suggestions on how to do it year-round, because the when here is, and I'll end with that, the when is, as you might guess, I'd say, all the time, right? So you do not want to be the only one doing that if you're the president of board development or volunteer recruitment or volunteer management. You want to be looking for people who need something that you can give some value to as an organization all the time. You want to be good listeners. So when you're sitting with people over coffee, over a drink, in the grocery line, at a soccer game, listening to people talk about their careers or thinking about communications or just needing to move up, think IBC and think, I wonder if that person needs to lead. I wonder if that person needs to volunteer. I wonder if I need to make an opportunity for that person. You know, we weren't gonna do this, but they're really having trouble speaking or going out, or they're going, what if we just had them introduce speakers? What if we had them be greeters? What if they really are trying to build their personal, I can't remember, ambivert, who said that? A word I don't know. So anyway, if you need to have them expand that personal skill, give them a chance to do it. Ask them to do it. But again, all year long. Don't just wait till you need them. Look for when they need you. So switch your mentality. Don't reach out when you have a week left. Keep that position open, is what I'm gonna say, and keep looking so you can do a better, more proper ask where you really understand the customer. If we had more time, I'd go into, and the handout will say, it's the customer journey. You need awareness, you need familiarity, you need trial. Come to an event, come to something, sit in on a call. You know, meet somebody. I want you to just meet somebody who's in IBC and talk to them. And then, you know, after trial, then you have more exposure and likes than you might have a join, and then you have loyalty. And then you have, I'm a believer and I want to do more. And I want to give that back to others. So it's the virtuous circle, but it starts with awareness and knowing about you and just listening. What do you need from us? So that's the end of my how to recruit. Questions?
You know, Joanne, that's a very good point to be referencing your bylaws. Like, we do that, we reference our bylaws a lot, and maybe look at, you know, we review them constantly, our board goals, everyone is aware of what they are, and looking at ways we can maybe even relieve some of the tasks, like right now.